And we are live. Good morning, Texas. Good morning, Louisiana. On Smart Money Culture TV, watching on your television sets. Always a pleasure to be here. Smart Money Culture TV is growing very fast. We are expanding as well. Very interesting day that we have ahead of us and behind us. Of course, we have hot CPI data that came in, which is the inflation data. And the markets just shrugged it off like it was absolutely nothing. They just shrugged it off. Uh, Donald Trump, of course, has clenched the nomination. They had kind of tried, I feel like, to make him the presumptive nominee before he actually had enough of the delegate votes to win the primary. And he said, no, don't worry about that. I'll just do it the hard way, as he said it, and that's exactly what he did. He waited until he got the nomination. He had the votes, and then he went from there. Hey, David, how are you, man?
I'm good. Can you see me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I don't see myself, but that's all right. I already know how I look.
Yeah, man, you look good.
Thank you. And
yes.
How's it going? What's the headline today? What's the latest?
Impact money. Trump wins the primary. CP numbers are hot, but the market's still up. War wages on.
Oh man, the business of war. This is disgusting for humanity. What are we doing? Let's set these people straight. And how do we let them get away with this stuff all the time?
I don't know how we let them get away with it all the time. It really is pretty upsetting. But that's exactly what they do. They have this business of war. You couldn't have said it better myself. It is the business of war, and it is just a dirty, stinking business.
It is. It is.
Dirty, stinking business.
And you see it portrayed, explained a lot in movies. So you see that, the U.S. dollar is not necessarily backed by gold, well, necessarily at all, but it is backed by the military-industrial complex.
Well, it's funny because I was just thinking about it actually, and I'm like, it is funny that oil stays the same price no matter how. I mean, right now anyway, for an extended period, no matter uh, how inflation goes up.
Right.
So that is pretty interesting. We must have some type of a deal. I wonder if we're still cashing in gold. But anyway, I want to go. So Trump has clenched the nomination. He's clenched it. It is good to go. He's got it. He is the nominee for the RNC. I'll tell you what, it is something else to watch as he navigates his way through things, because this guy is just, he is just really unstoppable. I mean, you got to just be like, the guy is just unbelievable. I mean, how many people said, Trump will not be the nominee. Trump will not be the nominee. Trump will not be the nominee. And sure enough, who's the nominee? Trump.
Right.
Trump.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's winning so much. He's winning so much. Almost tired of it, but I'm not tired of it.
He's almost tired of it. Yeah, actually, so here, he put out a video. Let me just play his video from yesterday that he put out. Add this to stage. Here he is, the great Trump.
Hello, everyone. It's your favorite president speaking to you on a really great day of victory. 1 week ago, we had something called Super Tuesday, and it was indeed super because we won at numbers that nobody has ever seen before, records in virtually every state. And tonight, likewise. But this one got us over the top. The Republican National Committee has just declared us the official nominee. And so we're the official nominee of the Republican Party, which is a big deal. But most importantly, we now have to go into victory because our country's in serious trouble. We have millions and millions of people flowing in. We have no respect on the world stage. What we say doesn't mean a thing anymore. And to have that happen is unthinkable. We have an economy that outside of certain little areas is doing very poorly. And we have something very, very important. We have a United States military that has to be taken care of. Again, this was a great day of victory. Last week was something very special, Super Tuesday. But now we have to get back to work because we have the worst president in the history of our country. His name is Joe Biden, sometimes referred to as Crooked Joe Biden, and he must be defeated. Our nation is failing. We're a nation that is in serious decline. We've never had a situation like this where we're not respected, we're laughed at, we're considered almost a joke. We're going to turn it around. We're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to close our borders. We're going to do things like nobody's ever seen before, and we're going to make our nation's economy be the best ever in the world. We had the best economy ever just a short while ago, and we're going to have that again. We're going to have people come into our country, but they're going to come in legally, and we're going to get your energy costs down by numbers that nobody would have said even possible. We have some sections of this country that are paying the highest numbers in the history of our country and among the most expensive energy anywhere in the world. And yet we have more liquid gold, I call it, under our feet than any other nation. Just 3 years ago, we were energy independent, and now we're going around begging for energy. So we're not going to have that anymore. We're going to have a strong country. We're going to have a respected country. We have to win an election, and we should win it by a lot because there's never been anybody worse at doing that job than Joe Biden. So we're not going to take time to celebrate. We'll celebrate in 8 months when the election is over. November 5th, I believe, will go down as the most important day in the history of our country. So start thinking about it. Start thinking about your vote, because this vote is going to be the most important vote you've ever cast. And again, for this evening and for last week and for all the weeks before, for the tremendous success we've had in this primary, I want to thank everybody. But much more importantly, we have to get to work to beat Joe Biden, the worst administration, the worst president in the history of our country. They are destroying our country, and we're not going to let that happen. Thank you very much.
Now, of course, one of the things. Can you see me?
I can.
Okay, good. One of the reasons why this is happening is because of the migrant crisis. I mean, Trump entered, he won initially in 2016. Really focusing on the forgotten men and women of the world. This was like the forgotten working men and women of the Western world. It is worldwide. Of course, it doesn't matter, where you are, in what Western country that you're at. It seems to be they are always coming here, and they're able to come. They're able to, however it is, the NGOs are funding them. And do you think there's a conspiracy? I just put out a post. Do you think there's a conspiracy to make it happen? I mean, you and I obviously have our thoughts on that, but it seems very organized.
It's extremely organized in a sense, and like I said, a lot of these ideas come about on a 100-year plan, a 50-year plan, even a 10-year plan on a short term. So they are well thought out. They are playing a game of strategic chess, you would say, and it is cautious steps, and they do have their schemes to create the promotion and to people giving their public image in a certain way at a certain time. And it's very well thought out. These are people on top of the world, and they are thinking with these intents and somewhat mastermind of ideas. And so yes, I would say that these are intentional moves.
This is Dublin. This is where you are, on the streets of Dublin here.
Okay, folks, look at this now. The things are increasing. Look at this. You can see the amounts today. Look at it. They're on the other side now. Right? Right up here. This is unbelievable. The numbers are increasing to beat the band every day. When you see this, look at this, everyone. Every day, more and more unvetted men are on the streets of Dublin.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Everybody walks past oblivious to it. Okay?
There's so many places in the world to go. Why would they go into a cold country
when you see
that doesn't have enough for them?
More and more.
Blame the country
government, blame Roger Goldblum.
Well,
doing this.
It is interesting because, of course, can you still hear my tab?
There's more.
I can hear you. Your screen looks frozen.
Unbelievable.
Okay, my screen or the video?
There's
your tab
hanging around in the corner. Look at this.
Yeah, we hear your tab.
Look at this.
Okay. It's funny that doesn't work. Anyway,
queues of people. Pure insane.
Yeah, it's
look at,
I think that
down the front of the building as well. Pure madness.
May have said it best. Tucker. And this is an invasion.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an invasion. And throughout history, there's been invasions over and over and over again. And this is, and he had a kind of a big enough mic. If I came out and said it was an invasion, earlier, I would have been a bad guy. And then this, of course, is Los Angeles. Let me just add it back to stage. It looks eerily similar. Okay. This is Los Angeles. Very interesting what we have going on in the world right now. As the wealthy, as the super wealthy are making more and more money, the poor are getting more and more poor. We have this influx of people coming in. What you want to make sure is that you're making money. You want to make sure that you're putting it in different places, that you can save yourself as this goes through. The man with the plan that we can always talk to about it. And I'm going to reload my page once I introduce him because I'm getting the weird stuff. But Sir Matt Dixon the Great, how are you?
Hi, good morning. I'm good, thank you. Hi, David, looking good.
Thank you.
Yeah, very interesting.
So, we had some hot CPI data come in yesterday, and the markets just didn't care.
Absolutely amazing, isn't it? The markets don't care. I'm shocked. I was absolutely shocked, but it's actually quite interesting that from a technical perspective, we were expecting things to push higher, and they did. But from a CPI perspective, we've got higher than expected inflation. It came out higher than previous, but also way higher than expectations. We were actually expecting a fall in CPI, and it rose. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Jerome Powell has to say, Fed Chair Jerome Powell, on the 20th. That's the next rate decision. So it's only a week away from now, isn't it? So it'll be very interesting to see what he has to say. And I think that could potentially be a shock to the market if he starts to potentially warn that interest rate falls are going to be put out further, yet again, delayed even further. Then that's not going to be accepted very kindly by the market. So it is really interesting. I think it is. We will look at a couple of the tokens and see how they performed. I wanted to look at a couple of indicators that I use. We have touched on them in the past, but I'm going to touch on them now. So I'm sharing my screen as we speak, just to show you.
Okay, and I'm going to reload my page. But go ahead.
Yeah. So assuming, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So this is just looking at the eBay token. It's not specific to eBay, any particular tokens you can look at. The reason I'm using this, obviously it's our own token, but it's just really demonstrates very, very clearly some interesting indicators. So eBay had an amazing day, well, today actually, up 18%. It's one of those AI tokens which is about to introduce some major upgrades that should change the world of crypto finance forever in terms of introducing the efficient frontier from a crypto perspective. So that is coming up in April. Those upgrades will be launched. So obviously the word is getting out there. We've had some really good performance on the token since we had a low in the token. We made some
eBay right here. Looking at your chart. Oh yeah, look at that. What do you call those green? I call them. People call them all kind of green wicks. You call them something though. Green shoots.
Well, green shoots is good. Yeah. So this is actually the RSI. It's an oscillator, and it's when you use it to measure divergence against price. So we've got a couple of divergences, and we'll just go through those in a little bit more detail because it's really important. It's one of the few leading indicators. Nearly all of technical analysis is based on lagging indicators, which just basically only looks at what's happened in the past. This is a leading indicator, one of the most accurate indicators there is. You still have to couple it with other things, but it's really good. So from this low point we had in the eBay token, we got a clear five-wave movement to the upside, which again, we're not looking for any overlapping, and clearly we don't have overlapping here. Very clear impulsive move to the upside. And there's actually some good Fibonacci relationships within that movement there. But what was interesting, in the fifth wave, the final fifth wave, we got something here called bearish divergence. And what that was basically a decline in the highs, the peaks here on RSI. At the same time, the very same corresponding prices, we got an incline on price. So what that was telling us, and again, I know we've done this before, but it's very important. We have our Learn How to Trade course. And this is just one of the things that we do focus on. It's really good to get this because it can help you make a lot of money. And we can even show that today. So we basically saw this incline in price, decline in RSI. That was called bearish divergence. It's telling you that the price is diverging against RSI. And it tells you of a reversal, a price reversal about to happen. And we can see it happened on the nose, on the button. It actually happened exactly then. So we got a very sharp decline in price. We could look, there are other divergences there. I won't go into them all. We'll just touch on 2 or 3 now. So we got basically, after a big impulsive wave 1, we got an A, a B, and a C in making up a wave 2. Wave 2 is a correction, meaning we should push to new highs above this previous high because this is the impulsive direction. The actual direction of the trend is up because of this. And then we have this correction against the trend downwards. And even within it, the wave counts are really nice. You can actually look at them in detail. Again, look at Fibonacci relationships. You will see over and over again, this relationship of 1.618 or 0.618, the golden ratio, and then multiplications of that or other Fibonacci relationships also showing themselves, 1.618, 2.618, 4.236, and so on. And then here on this final move down in wave 2, we had what's called an ending diagonal. And they normally stay within trend lines. So it's just obeying the rules from a technical perspective. Then we got what we call here, we had the bearish divergence signaling the price decline. Then we had at the end of this decline, wave 2, we had something called bullish divergence. So again, we're looking at lower lows on price, but higher highs on RSI, telling you that volume is beginning to pick up. Warning of a price reversal from this downturn, price was going to reverse higher. And again, on the button, absolutely on the nose here, price started to incline quite sharply. And so we got a really good push up in price there on that bullish divergence signal. But then at the top of this move here, we got a bearish divergence signal. So remember from previous, when you see higher highs on price, as we're seeing here and here again, we then see lower lows on the RSI. That's warning you that the price is getting a little bit exhausted. So we're seeing the volume dropping off, and we're seeing the bigger players basically not chasing this price up, but maybe some of the smaller players pushing the price higher. So it's not really supported by volume, and that's why we're seeing the volume decreasing. It's a warning sign that prices are about to reverse lower, and that is precisely what happened. But then yesterday, and I'll just open this out a little bit more so you can just see what happened yesterday. We had this fall, which was because of this bearish divergence, price fall here. But then yesterday we got a signal. Here we saw lower lows on price and we saw higher highs on RSI. So telling you the volume's picking up. And so we're likely to see a reversal then to the upside. That is absolutely precisely what's happened here. We saw a reversal very sharply, and that's what gave us, since yesterday alone, an 18% increase in price. And if you've been following this using divergence as a leading indicator, it could have signaled to you, and yet, as I say, you would look at other indicators to support it, but it could have signaled, you could have jumped in and got this 18% rise. But as I say, looking longer term, the picture is that because the impulsive direction is higher, when we just scale out a little bit, the impulsive direction is still to the upside. This was all a correction down. It means we should at some point be pushing above this level up here. So there's a lot more upside to come. And that aligns with our expectation for the markets, our knowledge of what's going on within eBay, the AI token, the big AI narrative, sorry. So all these positives are sort of lining up to give us, potentially new highs to come in the eBay token. It's one of the biggest performers today. So that's that. But we'll look at a couple of ones you mentioned about dollar index, and we had that break below this long held channel, and we looked at the long-term picture yesterday. So just looking at the short-term picture, it was interesting that yesterday we actually got quite a sharp movement up, and that was based on this CPI number. So dollar strength, strong CPI, in other words, strong inflation. That means interest rates will stay higher for longer. You would have thought it would have more of a negative impact on the stock markets, but we got a rally. So it's really a little bit difficult to fathom exactly why that happened. But as I say, we never take one indication alone in isolation. We look at other things. And as I say, the actual indications at the moment, the irresistible pressure for Bitcoin, for example, and we'll move on to Bitcoin, is definitely to the upside. When we saw gold tick up a little bit, you'd expect that with higher inflation. And I think with higher inflation coming through, I do think that the narrative for gold is really, really good. I think this looks like a correction to the downside with gold. And I think because it's the hedge against inflation, I think as we see more and more signals coming out saying inflation is still a problem. I mean, it's still approaching twice the target rate. And we saw both measures of inflation, even the core, when you exclude food and energy, was still higher than expected. And year-on-year inflation was again higher than expected. So, that is really a little bit worrying. So that's a good sign for gold. And again, if you looked at indications, I can't see on this time frame, but actually I think I can see that potentially we've got some hidden bullish divergence telling us that price will go higher. But I'd rather do an in-depth analysis, but looking as though there's technical indications that we're going higher as well as fundamental. So it was a surprise yesterday. We got a real push up on the S&P. You wouldn't have expected that with the news that came. This is an overhead resistance that we've kind of just pierced it briefly, but we didn't manage to close above it. And that's actually an important measure. If you close above a resistance level, that is actually quite a strong sign. But if you just pierce above it with a little shadow of the candle above it, and then fall back below, then that's potentially a negative sign. So I do think we're still quite possibly in for a bit of a correction in the risk assets like the S&P 500. But Bitcoin, once again, history being made each and every day at the moment, where we're making higher highs. These are new all-time highs. So everybody who invested in Bitcoin at any time in Bitcoin history, as long as they held their position, they're actually in profit now. I mean, Bitcoin, absolutely amazing, over 73,000 now. I was talking with some crypto whales last night, some real crypto influencers. Well, they're not actually influencers, but I know they're big into crypto, big holders of crypto. They are basically saying that they believe that we haven't even started with with institutions are beginning to come in. But very soon, if pension funds start to allocate toward crypto, just 1 or 2% of the pension funds, that'll be a massive amount to come into crypto. And there's only this limited supply, very, very limited supply. It's not like the dollar with unlimited money printing, etc. Limited supply. And the demand is just increasing more and more and more. And we're seeing that now. And why would anybody want to sell? People don't even want to spend it. You can spend Bitcoin now, but they don't want to spend it because you're spending an appreciating asset. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So it means that the demand continues to increase, especially off the back of ETFs with institutional money coming in. Retail are still just beginning to dip their toes again. Retail were burnt. We got from 0 to 69,000. We had the big fall with FTX. And retail, a lot of retail were badly burned, and they've still not really got the confidence back in. So FOMO hasn't really started to bite, but it will do. The fear of missing out will come, and there'll be more and more institutional money coming in. The retailers will get back onto it. The sky is the limit at the moment, and I think the only thing that can stop this, the words that I heard last night, it wasn't me that said it, it said the only thing that can stop Bitcoin is World War III. Well, that's probably a little bit extreme. Any major geopolitical issue could potentially put the brakes on. But I do think that long-term, Bitcoin looks to be unstoppable, because there is just so much pent-up demand and demand there. The other tokens are, Ethereum obviously is probably the next one to get ETF approval. So Ethereum is one of the, leaders up there. So if you look at the gainers, so for example, we see Bitcoin 2.5% today. Amongst the major ones, that's one of the top ones. We see a couple of standouts, like eBay stood out with 18%. We see BNB standing out with 8%. But in general, Bitcoin is kind of leading the way amongst the big tokens. Ethereum is in second place amongst the big tokens, and that's because it's the next ETF. But we've even seen some, we saw that amazing performance with XRP. I do think we're probably due a bit of a pullback soon, because if you look at Solana, I do think we're on some kind of ending diagonal, as I said yesterday, and I think we could push up even to test this upper trend line here. That's at the 160 level at the moment. So potentially we could push higher, but I do think that if this is an ending diagonal, this is ending wave 3, we'll get a pullback in wave 4. So it doesn't mean the run is over. We still have new higher highs to come. In local highs I'm talking about, way above this level. But short term, I think there's risk of a bit of a pullback at some point. But it's just hard to see how that can happen with Bitcoin, with the supply and demand on Bitcoin. And then we've got oil, did take a bit of a turn up, and I think there's still a lot of geopolitical issues, isn't there, Bruce? I missed your news updates. What's going on in the world, Bruce, with geopolitical issues? Is there any issues going on?
Well, Trump has clinched the nomination, so that's pretty big news. I feel like everybody in the world was saying that it wasn't going to happen. The Paul Ryan, who was the former Speaker of the House, he will not be the nominee. You had just everybody. He's not going to be the nominee. It was just like it was really in 2015, 2016. So he's clinched it. Barring World War III or God forbid.
We were looking for a reason. We're looking for a reason just now as to why crypto pumped despite CPI going higher. Well, that could actually be the reason, because even last night it came out that if Trump were to win, that's very positive. That is positive for crypto. So far more positive than Biden. So that could be the reason.
It could be the reason. There's no doubt about it. It could be as well that I don't know. Who knows what the Fed is gonna do. They sent 300 million. Biden comes out and he says, "Oh, it's fine. I can do whatever I want." Basically, the DOD has this money in a whatever, wink, wink, whatever. I'm just gonna print it up from the central bank. But he also sent 300 million over to Ukraine. So that could have also fueled a bit of the pump. They know they're going to get the money. So that money, when that money is allocated and printed up for these every time these supplementals come through, and they send money off to where the markets pump.
Yeah, and this money actually does find its way into risk assets ultimately. Yes, it might be.
100%. I mean, it's like a very, very clear correlation. Even when the Ukraine-Russia war initially started, if you remember, there was like an initial kind of, and then boom, we had a huge green wick as, whoever wanted to take a larger position.
Yeah, quite interesting here looking at your doggy coin. It does look as though we could be in the early stages of a bit of a correction. Again, doesn't mean it's not going to go to new highs here above this previous level of 20 cents, just over 20 cents. But it does look as though we had quite an impulsive move to the downside. I cannot see this as being impulsive to the upside. It looks very, very corrective and overlapping to the upside here. So I would expect we're highly likely to see some kind of correction, a bit further correction to the downside, I think, before we have any chance of moving up again to new highs. So I think we're likely to see sooner or later a correction in these markets. So it's just really to keep people aware that markets don't always move in one direction. By all means, probably one of the best strategies is to buy and to hold a lot of these assets. It's very difficult unless you're a real professional, really in touch with the latest data. It's very difficult to know exactly when to buy and to sell. But I do think that if you buy some of these assets, some of the really good assets, and hold them long term, no matter what happens, through thick and thin. So, for example, if you're holding doggy here and it falls back a little bit, then if you hold it, so really leverage can be very, very dangerous, because if you're long or short in any position, any asset with leverage, there's potential to stop out. But if you take a long-term view that these assets, the good assets, are going to pump to new all-time highs, and there's a real chance, as we said yesterday, for real generational wealth transfer here, for ordinary people to get involved. But trading these assets, most people miss out. Most people who traded Bitcoin, maybe like yourself, who got into it when it's just a few $100s, you're so tempted as a trader to pull out when it doubles in price or triples in price. Whereas some of those other people who just bought and held, they're now, who bought in at a few $100s, now at $73,000, and maybe still holding, maybe got a target of $250,000 or whatever, but setting a big target for the future. Sometimes that's the best way if you haven't got the time or inclination to trade actively. So some of these assets, you can look into them. Injective has been an amazing one. It had a fantastic run yesterday. Again, just having a little bit of a pullback, and I think a lot of those assets will have a little bit of a pullback, but longer term, I just think the market is looking so bright at the moment. So I'll leave you on the Bitcoin chart there, and I'll move it onto the longer term Bitcoin chart there. So you can just see what Bitcoin has, how that chart looks amazing, doesn't it?
It's
just
beautiful.
Yeah, that looks phenomenal. Very, very powerful. That is what you call an impulsive move to the upside. And this arrow, or these indications, I did have drawn on some time ago, that I'm expecting at some time, some point, we're going to get some kind of pullback, but I don't really see that it can be sustained, because the real the real direction, the real impulsive direction of this market is still to the upside. And so even if we get a pullback, I think we've got new upsides to come. And so you can see basically here, although we've got a blue wave 5 somewhere near completion, I believe, and I think we're going to get a blue wave 4, which is actually a bigger scale, then we still have a new wave 5 to come, which will be above here. So to take us to, once again, to brand new all-time highs for Bitcoin. So what usually happens with these markets, you can see what's called overbought situation. Anything over 70 on RSI is what's called overbought. And we can see that by the green shading here, that the RSI is overbought. And it can go more overbought. I suspect we will see more overbought situation. But then you get a gradual wave 4 rest in the market, really. And at that time, you see RSI fall back to these levels, maybe even to oversold territory. And that's when you see the next big rise in the market in impulsive fashion, where RSI will once again rise to overbought territory. But that would be accompanying a massive rally in a fifth wave to new all-time highs. And if this is an impulsive move, it's just the beginning. If we really are in impulsive territory from if we look on weekly, for example, again, you can see how powerful this is. The previous move to all-time highs. If this was just a correction, an ABC correction to the downside here, we've already moved really impulsively to the upside, but this is just the beginning. If this was a wave 1 to the upside, this was a wave 2. Wave 3 is going to be massive, absolutely massive. And then we still have wave 4 and 5 to come to the upside. So the sky really is the limit with these assets, and it's very, very dangerous. I wouldn't recommend shorting anything right now, but still be cautious. Be aware that pullbacks can happen. So that's really the summary for today. I think we're looking forward particularly to the week ahead, and let's see what comes out with the next rate decision.
Yeah, well, very interesting. All eyes. I'll tell you what, the central bank, the Federal Reserve, has been even just trending here in the U.S. almost continuously.
Yeah,
very interesting situation that we have going on over here.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we do see inflation still being really sticky, we will see a push up, as we see here we looked yesterday at the dollar index here. Every time there's a peak or a trough in the dollar index, it corresponds with a big high or low or crisis or opportunity with Bitcoin. So I'll be looking at this parallel channel, and if we do reach the top or the bottom of it, it should be, depending on whether BTC is at a high or a low, and I suspect it's going to be a high, then that'll be the likelihood of a major, at least short-term turnaround in fortunes for Bitcoin. And obviously the rest of the market will likely follow. But we're mid-channel at the moment. So if we're actually in a bull run for Bitcoin, because we're mid-channel in the dollar index, it actually is telling you there's a lot more scope for potential gains. If we're mid-channel and dollar index has to move to the top or the bottom of the channel to give us either a peak or a trough in Bitcoin, and we're looking for a peak because it's moving impulsively to all-time highs, then because we're mid-channel right now, there's so much scope for more appreciation. We really could, this is really, as I say, life-changing potential opportunity here in Bitcoin. So, I just think the signs are out there, and I've never seen such an opportunity. I've been in finance now for, 40 years virtually, and I've never seen quite such an opportunity as we see right now.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I actually just had a question kind of come in from or a comment come in from one of our viewers on X. She says, anyone else skeptical of Bitcoin? Lack of knowledge on my part. The thing about Bitcoin, and one of the reasons why they have made it kind of the boogeyman for everybody, is they don't want you to own it. They don't want you to have it. See, a Bitcoin, a lot of people, especially the ones that are around in the early days, nobody knows how many Bitcoins they have. Nobody knows, okay? And they're able to hold on to this asset, and there is nothing that they need. They can actually just store the seed phrase in their mind and there is nothing for the government to seize. There's nothing to take. And so it's the first time in the history of the world that something like this has ever existed. So it makes sense that people don't totally understand it. I get it 100%. But this is something new. If you want to walk around, I don't know if you've ever held a $35,000 or $40,000 worth of gold in your hand, but it's heavy. Try traveling with $250,000 of gold. You probably can't do it, Trisha. I mean, it's no joke. Okay. And so now we have something where you are able, I mean, God forbid something happens, to travel around with literally millions or hundreds of millions or hundreds of thousands or just even 50 grand in your mind or on a thumb drive or something like that. And if you don't give away the coins, it's impossible there's no central authority. So even if a court order comes down, and our courts right now are an absolute mess, I think we can all agree about that. If a court order comes down and says to take this person's Bitcoins, if the person doesn't give it up, there is no way, unless you've done something wrong and put your password somewhere or something like that, there is no way for the government to seize it from you. And that is why they've put the price so high, because they don't want you to own it. And that's why, as Matt has been going over quite a bit here for the last bit, that U.S. business accepts as cash. That is part of it. I'll touch on it in just a second there, Trisha, in a good question. But that is one of the reasons why they are continuing to push the price up. They don't want you to own it. And so they're going to continue they're going to own all the Bitcoin. And that's why it looks like, yeah, of course, this is going to go up to $250,000 or more. And you're only going to be able to own the fake paper kind, just like the US dollars. Your US dollar is actually, if you look at it, you can Google around it. One day I'm going to go through all the symbolism on there. There's all kinds of satanic and occult symbols on there. That is not our money. That money is issued by the Federal Reserve. They made that money. It's not our money. And they lend it to us. They print it up and they lend it to us, and they charge us about 3%. And then they let us use it. Now, as far as accepting it right now, a lot of people, you have to turn it into cash. But now it's becoming so valuable that why in the world would anybody want to trade it in for cash? So will businesses accept it? Yes. Will people accept it? Yes. But even right now, you don't want to get rid of it. All you want to do is get more of it, because this is something that is more valuable than gold. I mean, look at it. It's like gold is like, every day you're like, okay, it's going to pop up to 3,000 one of these days, and it's like it moves this little bit, and it's a good store of value. There's no doubt about that. And I do think it'll pop. But meanwhile, Bitcoin, I mean, Trisha, we were buying these things at $70 back in the 2013, 2014, and look at it now, and it has no sign of stopping. And and again, the reason is that, and you look at the other coins and these other tokens, and you have the Ethereum, and you have the other one, and even the our friends with the shit with that, these meme tokens and everything. We're making a bunch of money with these guys, right? And it's good to make money with them, but be conscious that those tokens are just like the central bank, maybe even worse, because they can be frozen, and they can be stopped, and they can be taken by court order just by a click of a button. Gold is about $2,000 an ounce. Yes, gold is about $2,100 right now, and it's a pretty interesting situation. I don't even know how much gold the U.S. has anymore, because everybody always blamed Nixon. Our whole life, everyone blamed Nixon. They said Nixon took us off the gold standard, but all Nixon ever did was stop foreign countries of the world from buying gold at a discount. The Federal Reserve, first of all, they seized everybody's gold in 1933 by executive order, and they seized everyone's gold. And then they made new legislation barring Americans from owning gold. You couldn't buy gold. And so they said that the US dollar was pegged at $35 per troy ounce of gold, but it was impossible for you to trade it in for gold. You weren't allowed to own gold, but the rest of the world was allowed to trade in the US dollars for gold. And so I don't even know how much gold we have. Why did Nixon do that? did Nixon do that because there's no gold left, or did he just do it because we were running out of gold? I mean, I don't know, but pretty interesting situation, and that's why. But these Bitcoin, Litecoin, Digibyte, even ours, Global Boost, the one we started long ago. These are the old blockchains, okay, and they're decentralized and they're impossible to freeze, seize, and all that stuff. So you got to be careful. Now, there's also, you don't want to miss the new ones, you know. So and that's where our learn how to trade.club comes into play. Use the discount code TradeSmart10 because let's face it, you're probably not doing anything nefarious. You probably don't have to worry about getting your assets seized. Okay, but and sometimes it's not even nefarious, but maybe you know what I mean. But the rises of these things are absolutely insane. But one of the things that they've done very effectively is made it where people are scared of it, and they say, "Oh, it's the mark of the beast, and it's this and that and the other." And guys, look at your money. That's the mark of the beast. There's no occult symbols in Bitcoin code. I've looked over the Bitcoin code. We poured over the Bitcoin code. There's no occult. TradeSmart10 is the discount code, and you go to learnhowtotrade.club, and you use TradeSmart10 is the thing. But there's no symbols in the Bitcoin code. Central banks are dangerous. There's no doubt about that. The Federal Reserve, the central banking cartel, basically owns the country. That is how and why we aren't able to get anything through Congress. That's why it doesn't matter who we vote for. We can't get anything done. So anyway, great discussion. I don't want to keep you on so much, Matt.
No, really interesting stuff, Bruce. Just very briefly, the conversation last night, part of the conversation went that when Bitcoin goes to wherever it goes to, let's just say it goes to, I mean, it genuinely could go to $1 million. It actually could go to $1 million now. You can see that happening if pension funds just allocate 1% of their assets into it, and there's so little supply. Bitcoin could go there, but then people are saying, yeah, but if you wanted to cash out at, let's say, $1 million, where would you then put it? Well, nobody has confidence in the US dollar long term because they just can print more and more of it. It doesn't hold its value. So the US dollar isn't the place to put it. Where would you put it for security? There's nowhere better than Bitcoin to put your money. So I don't think there ever is a time necessarily to cash out of Bitcoin. If people cashed out now and bought something else with it, they're actually getting rid of an appreciating asset and exchanging it for something which isn't appreciating. Like the US dollar or even property. Property can just as well go down in value. So
listen, I've been complaining over it. I obviously had to pay it again, which made me really upset the other day. But I have to pay $2,000 a month to live in my own home that's paid for. Yeah, it's insane.
And talking about Bitcoin again, the risks. Let me just touch on the potential risks for Bitcoin. So let's say potentially governments try to ban it. Well, we do know China have tried to ban it. We know that actually they've tried to ban it on numerous occasions. And it causes a hiccup in price. But the thing is, the mining is so decentralized, it can actually move anywhere around the world anyway. So the governments really can't stop it. The only potential risk is they will try to stop it because they're going to introduce their own central bank digital currencies, their CBDC. But even then, people want their own decentralized currency. Mining can happen anywhere around the world. And a lot of mining is now moving to Dubai and UAE. You can actually get very cheap energy here. People are using renewable energy. You mine anywhere, really. So this is why it's not controllable, because it is truly decentralized. They can't just go and say, okay, close your Bitcoin mining or whatever. It's just, Bruce has just disappeared. But, it is truly decentralized. So it's pretty secure. The governments can try to stop it. They have tried to stop it. Hello again, Bruce. They have tried to stop it, but they're not being successful because decentralization is what the world wants. For so long, we've been held captive, held ransom to centralized power. And as we've said before, centralization of power is basically the opportunity for corruption, because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's where decentralization comes in, puts power back in the hands of the people through decentralization. So without that concentration, there's no real opportunity for abuse. And that's why the Bitcoin, because of decentralization, there's lots and lots and lots of people holding Bitcoin. There's less and less opportunity for whales to manipulate prices. So Bitcoin there's so many positives. It's better than gold. It's better than other assets. Not saying we should put all your money there, but it's definitely with diversification, people need to hold something in there for their futures.
Oh, the passion. I love the passion.
Passion. Well, I'll tell you what, we've been on the stages around the world. We've been talking about this stuff for a long time. And it's really something else. I remember what keeps the government out of this. They can tax at the final point of transaction. Correct. All right, we're about to wrap up the show here, but to answer your question, the government is going to try to do everything they can. That's why even the government is actually one of the biggest holders. The U.S. government is one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin. While they've been telling you not to buy it, they've been buying it. And the government have no recourse. If the government could stop it, they would have stopped it a long time ago. And I know that's hard to maybe for some people to understand, but if the government could stop it, they would stop it a long time ago. And if you turn it in for US dollars, you have a taxable event. There's no doubt about that. If you keep it and you hold it, and it's not a taxable event. So what we really need to do is start accepting the coins more together, which is undoubtedly going to happen as these things become more and more possible. Why would you want to be in the US dollar when you're getting diluted so badly every day, as you alluded to, Matt? So if you we got to wrap up here. We got about 10 seconds, I think, on smart money.
Do what they do, not what they say. If they're buying Bitcoin, you best follow them, buy Bitcoin. And in Dubai, you can buy your coffee with a Bitcoin now, not with a Bitcoin, with a fraction of a Bitcoin.
A fraction.
It's becoming real money.
That's it.
Boom.
All right, gentlemen. Great show today. Cheers.
Good stuff. Thank you, guys. Catch you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.